Expo Modules enables you to write custom native code, extending your app's capabilities. They also simplify the process of wrapping existing native libraries for iOS and Android, making them usable in your Expo app. In today's video, we'll be using the Expo Modules API to create a charts module by integrating two similar open source libraries, MP Android Chart for Android and Charts for iOS. And by the way, the iOS library is inspired by the Android library, so they both have a similar API and functionality. This makes them a good example for this tutorial. Let's jump to see the demo. Alright, so here I have the guide that we're going to be following. If you search in the Expo docs, wrap third-party native libraries, you'll find this guide and you can follow along with me. The demo, it's using these two libraries, MP, like I was mentioning before, MP Android Chart for Android. This is how it looks. Let me make this a bit bigger so that you can see. And the iOS one. So let me go to the previous screen. And by the way, these charts for iOS was inspired by the Android one. As you can see here, it's been synced. So the API is truly similar. So basically it's the same thing for iOS and Android. And this is great for integrating this on React Native. So here you have the docs, and if you are wondering if you want to see some native examples, you can also come here and check it out. Let's go back to the guide. All right, so on the right, I have this chart. This is how it works on iOS. As you can see, you can drag and rotate the chart, and you can do the same thing on Android. And if you press one of these colors, you get like this animation that is increasing the color that you are selecting. You can also set some labels. And this is just a very basic example. From here, you can extend more functionalities like when the user presses, or if you want to allow the user to pass like labels in the props, apart from the data, you can do so. So yeah, this is a demo. If you're interested, keep watching. Here I have a new app that I just created using a create Expo app command. And I'm using the Expo template. So we have Expo router and a bunch of cool stuff already. We have some components and things like that. So in this case, I will be creating this module inside this project, but you can also abstract this into its own module. And then if you want to publish it to NPM, you can do so. But I think this is a great example for integrating a native module that is custom for my app, so no one else is going to be using it. I'll do it inside my application. So let's go through the guide and let's keep scrolling down. To create a native module using Expo, we need to run this create Expo module command, as you can see here. And if you want to start with a new project, you can do so. But in this case, we already have the app. So let's go ahead and create it locally. And we can do that by passing the local flag. So on the left, I'll open my terminal. I'll go ahead and paste the command npx create Expo module local. Important that you pass this local flag if you're doing this locally, and then the name of the module. So I'll open again the Explorer so that we can see that this is going to generate a folder called modules. And inside this folder, the native code for this module is going to be allocated. So the name is going to be Expo Radial Chart. Let's go ahead and hit enter. What is the native module name? Let's leave the default, which is Expo Radial Chart. And then what is the Android package name? Let's go ahead and select the default. In this case, of course, you can change this if you want to. And that's it. So here on the left, we have the newly created modules folder. You can keep adding more modules inside this folder if you want to. The name is going to be Expo Radial Chart. And as you can see, we have the TypeScript code, which is exporting all the methods and views that we have inside these iOS and Android native folders. And if you open these two, you'll find the native source code for Android and iOS. As I was mentioning before, this comes with simple examples. Let's quickly check the Swift module. As you can see here, we are just defining the name and exporting some example events and functions. Okay, same thing for Android. If we go to the main Kotlin file, which is going to be this module, the implementation is actually pretty much the same thing. As you can see here, we are exporting some functions and some change events. All right, so let's go ahead and run the app to see if this is working. I'll open the terminal. I will be testing this locally, so I'll say npx expo prebuild, and I will be prebuilding for both platforms. So let's just run this command. I will leave this bundle identifier and package name as default, and let's wait a minute. Now let's run this for iOS. So I'll say npx expo run iOS and hit enter. This will install my application in my iOS simulator. So this is gonna take a minute. Let's wait a little bit. All right, and the build is completed and it's asking me to open this library. So I'll go ahead and press open. This will start running my Hello World application. So let's go to the entry point, which is going to be this layout. It's rendering the tabs template, which is fine. I'll just go to the index.tsx and change this parallax view. Let's delete this and I'll just create an empty fragment. I'll go ahead and delete the styles as well. And I don't think we're gonna need this. So let's go ahead and delete everything to keep this clean. And now I want to import my module. You can go to the index file and you can see that we are exporting this Expo radial chart view, which is expecting some props, as you can see here. And then we are also exporting the type for the props and some changed event logic. So from here, we can import the module. So let's go ahead and go back to the index, Expo radial chart view, and I'll import this from my modules index, as you can see here. And then this is expecting a name. So let's say hello and hit save. All right, and yeah, this is not breaking. This is working, which is good. And actually, as you can see here, if we go to see the implementation for this chart view that we're using here, let's go to the iOS folder. Let's start with iOS. And if I move this to the right, you can see that we have this Expo radial chart view. And this is the view. And we don't have anything. That's why we are not seeing anything. So let's go back to the guide and see what's next. We ran the project. This is working fine. Now we need to add the native dependencies. So here we have how we can do it on Android. We can simply add this line in the Android build Gradle. So what I'll do is just copy this entire piece of code and then go to my code. And in my Android folder, I will open my build.gradle. And then I'll just scroll all the way down. As you can see, we don't have any dependencies yet. So I'll just scroll all the way down. And down here, I'll paste this. And then just delete these two that we are not going to be using. And 2 spaces, hit save. All right, that's it. Now let's go back and do the same thing for iOS. So we need to add this dependency in the podspect file. So let's go back and then let's go inside the iOS folder. And in here, after the Expo module score, we can paste this dependency like so and hit save. Now next, we need to define the API or the properties that the native view is going to be getting from the JavaScript. So it's a good idea to start doing this on the JavaScript side. Let's go ahead and create a type for this series, which is going to be it's going to be containing the percentage value and the color. And then we need to export the type for the chart view props. So let's go ahead and put this down here. And now we already have this one. So let's go ahead and delete it. We won't be using that one. And this is using the style for a view style. And we can import these from React Native. Okay, so we can pass the style and data. These are the properties that we're going to be passing to the native side and rendering based on this. Cool. So now, because I don't have the name, some things are breaking, as you can see here. Now we don't require this hello. Instead, we are requiring some other things like data and style. Okay, so let's just pass an empty array in here, hit save. Let's go back. This is an array, by the way, of series. Okay, so now we have successfully defined the properties that this view is going to get. Let's go back to the guide. Now we already did this because we are not going to be implementing anything for web. We are just printing a text that says not implemented. So let's keep moving down. Now let's start with iOS. So I'll go ahead and jump after Android and let's implement iOS and then we can implement Android. Now this is the moment, guys. We are actually about to start writing some native code. So let's open Xcode. So what I'll do now is just come here and stop my server and clear my terminal. So I built my iOS and Android folders. And a good way to write native code, it's actually using Xcode because you will have autocomplete and syntax highlights If we try to do that on VS Code, it's going to be very hard. So let's open the iOS folder by saying XED and then iOS. Basically, I'm saying Xcode, open the iOS folder and hit enter. Okay, so now we have here Xcode. And on the left side, you can see the third-party native libraries project, as well as the pods. So let's expand the props here. And from here, what I want to do is expand development pods. And here, let's search for the radial chart, which it's in here. And here you'll find the view and the module as well. So let's check the module definition. So this is a module definition. As you can see, we have the name of the module, and this is the one that we are requiring from the JavaScript side. And you can see, some of the other examples down here, but if we scroll all the way down, you'll find the view. So this enables the module to be used as native view. So the prop in this case was a string. If you remember, we had a name. So we need to change this. Let's go to the guide again. Now let's scroll here a little bit to the native code. And the first thing that we need to do is, again, create a series, kind of a type. In this case, it's going to be a record. So let's go ahead and do that here. Now, by the way, this is going to be in the view file. So let's go to the view file. And I'll do this on top of this. So the record is going to be as follows. Basically the same thing. We have a color and percentage. But in iOS, we need to use UI color. And we are setting this to be black. But we can change this to be white. And as you can see, as soon as I type, we have autocomplete because we're using Xcode. Cool. And the percentage is going to be a double, initialized to be 0. Let's go back to the guide. This is the record. Now we need to import the charts, but let's do that in a moment. I'll show more in here. And now you can see that we have the implementation of the view here. So the first thing that we need to do is create an instance of the pie chart view. Now I think Xcode is going to start yelling at me because it cannot find the pie chart view. And like I was mentioning before, this is great because we're using Xcode. Xcode is telling me you are messing things up, so go ahead and import the missing library. So we can come down here and copy the import. Let's go at the top of the file. And as soon as I import this warning should go away. All right, and now we encounter a new problem, and this is great. The reason why we're seeing this is because we added this dependency, but we didn't rebuild our project. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'll do now is come back to VS Code and then clear my terminal again, and I'll run npx expo prebuild and then pass the clean flag and hit enter. So this will ask me if you want to proceed because you have some things that you haven't committed to GitHub, and that's fine. I'll just go ahead and say yes. What I'm doing here basically is recreating the iOS and Android folder. So as you can see here, Xcode is jumping around because now the project was closed and it was recreated. Okay, so it's installing the pods again. So if we go back to Xcode, you can see that we modified this. So I'll go ahead and close this. And now that this has been rebuilt again, we can say Xcode, open the iOS folder, please. And now we can come back to Xcode and let's go to the pods, development pods, and we should be good to go to the Expo radial chart. And if we select the view, we are good now. We don't have any warnings because now this library is installed on the iOS side and as well Android. All right, so let's go back to the guide and let's keep scrolling down. We have the instance of the pie chart view. And then we need to add this, basically this chart view as a subview. So after this, I'll go ahead and paste this required init function. And then basically what we're doing here, it's clipped this view to the bounds. We're setting this to true and then adding a subview, which is going to be this chart view. All right, pretty easy so far. Let's go back to the code. And then we're overriding the layout subviews. So let's go ahead and do this. This is so that the chart view is going to take the entire available space. This is great when we are styling with Flexbox. And finally, we get to the good stuff. Let's go ahead and copy this function that is setting the data for the view. So basically we're going to be passing data as property. So we're defining this set chart data, and we are going to get the data, which is an array of series that we are defining up here. This is a struct that is going to be moving between the JavaScript side and the native side. Okay, so we're going to get this array of series, and from here we need to pass this to the view. And the way we do that is by creating a set. So we define this variable set, and then using the pie chart data set, we are passing the entries, which is going to be the data, and we are iterating over each one of these series. And then we are returning a data entry, right? So we return the pie chart entry, and we are setting the value to equal to the series dot percentage. And if I do dot, we can change this to be the color, or if you want to pass any other value, you can do so. So yeah, let's just leave this as the percentage. And then we're also setting the color. So if we say set1.colors, then iterate again over the data, and we are returning a UI color for each record. And then we are just simply setting this series.color. So this is how we set basically the native view based on the properties that we're going to be passing from JavaScript. And then finally, we create this chart data variable, and this is going to be of type pie chart data. And we pass this set1 as an array, and then we add this to the view. So we had this chart view that we created up here, and then we can set the data by saying .data equal to the chart data that we are creating here. Okay, and that's all we need. We're adding the subview, which is the most important thing. This is what we are going to see on the native side. So let's go ahead and hit save. Now, a good tip to prevent you from wasting a lot of time is that every time that you change the native code, you need to rebuild the application. But actually, we need to do one more thing. If we go to the chart module definition, if we scroll all the way down, we have the view here. And this is the example that we had before, but instead of name, now it's going to be called data. And the prop is not going to be a string anymore. This is going to be an array of series. Okay, and this is coming from here. Okay, we don't need to import anything. Swift already knows that we are using this from the other file. And now, instead of printing the prop, what I want to do is just grab this view that we are getting here. So I'll say view dot, and I'll access the set chart data function that we define here, this one. And this is expecting data, right, of type series. So we pass the data, and this will come from the props. So I'll say prop. So basically, the API of Expo Modules will get the JavaScript data, and from here we are passing this data to the native view. Super clean, one line of code basically. And now we should be good to use this component in our Expo app. Let's go back to the guide. So here we are doing the same thing, changing the prop to be data. Now the view is Expo radial chart view, which is the same thing that we had before. We are changing the type that we are passing to the view, which is series now, an array of series. And then we can go to the JavaScript side or the Expo app and finally use this component as follows. You can see here this example. So let's go ahead and copy this and let's go back to VS Code. Okay, here we are in VS Code. I'll go ahead and go to the index and paste this in here. Okay, now we need to pass a style, and I want this to take the entire screen space. So I'll say flex of 1. And let me close the terminal down here. I'll close this in here and hit save. Okay, and we're importing these. So from the JavaScript side, we are not changing anything. It's just the iOS implementation. Now let's run this on iOS and see if this works. And there's a couple of ways to do this. The first one is going to be selecting the simulator that you want to run this. So I'll select this iPhone 15 Pro and just play. This will rebuild the application and run it on my simulator. Okay, and the app is running, as you can see here on the right. Okay, now the app, it's broken because I didn't start the server. So let's go ahead and say npx expo start. Okay, just make sure that we're using a development build. Okay, so let's go back. And I think I can just reload the app from here. This will grab the bundle and build the app. All right, and just like that, we are able to see this native view on iOS. All right, so now we are back in VS Code, and from here we can keep modifying this. So I'll just add a margin of 16 and then change the colors because I don't really like these colors. So let's hit save, and this is how it looks. Now, all the native functionality would be available as, for example, rotating this chart, and when I press one of these, we should be able to see everything working fine. Now, down here we have this label, as you can see, and from here it's just a matter of keep iterating what you want to do. So if we go back to the native view on Xcode, let's go to the charts view. So from here, we can just go down here and start changing properties of the native view. For example, I can say chart view, center text, and then say, hello, Expo Modules. Now remember, every time that you change the native code, you have to rebuild the app. So I think it's easier if you just press play from here instead of going to VS Code and run again, npx expo run. But I would say it's the same thing, whatever you feel more comfortable. So this is going to start rebuilding the application, and we should be able to see this native change in the iOS app. So let's go back to the app. Okay, the app is running. And here we have the center text. So it says, hello, Expo Modules. And this is how easy you can start changing native code, and it's going to be reflected in your application. Now, the great thing of using React Native is that we don't have to rebuild every time that we change something that is already available on the JavaScript side. So what I'm saying here is, for example, if I change this to be 0.5, this is going to be updated using live reloading, because you don't have to wait for the app to be rebuilt every time that we change a simple value, right? And we can keep adding more values. Let's just paste this in here, hit save, and I can change the color for this one, for example, black, and hit save. And this is how it looks. Amazing, right? Now let's jump and see how we can implement the same thing on Android. So let's go back to the guide and now scroll up to see the Android implementation. You'll be surprised that this is very similar to what we have on iOS. And part of this is because both libraries are basically copies of each other. We have to do the same thing, create a pie chart instance, and then from there, set the data. Alrighty guys, so to do this on Android, I'll open my Android folder. As you can see here, I'm selecting my Android folder and open this in Android Studio. Okay, and Android Studio is asking me if I trust this project. Of course, I trust this project, so let's open it. So on Android, as you can see, Gradle is running some things here. So we need to wait a little bit once we open this project, but you should be able to see this drop down. Make sure that you select Android, and then you can, from here, select the Expo Radial Charts, which is a model that we're working on. And inside Kotlin plus Java, you will find the chart module as well as the view. Okay, so same thing here. We don't have anything implemented yet. And if we go back to the radial chart, we can scroll down. This is very similar to what we had before. The only difference, I would say, it's going to be that in this case, we are typing using Kotlin instead of Swift. So the types are going to change a bit. Let me maximize this import. This is by default what we had before, so I haven't changed anything. So let's go and check out the guide. Here I have it. And let me press on show more. Basically, we have to follow the same process. Now, once we have the record that we want to be passing between native side and JavaScript side, we can simply start transforming this into the specific platform. And this is how we do it on Kotlin. So in this case, you can see that it's yelling at me. So let's go ahead and import all these things that we're going to be using. So I'll just replace this in here and paste. Now, great advantage. We were using syntax highlight, and that's great because it let me know that I was missing some imports. So that's huge. And this is how it looks, the record. As you can see, the difference is that the color is going to be a string instead of a UI color that we saw on Swift. And this is going to be a float, and we are initializing it a bit different. Other than that, it's the same thing. Now let's go to the end of this class and I'll open curly braces. Let's go here and we need to do the same thing. Basically, we need to add the new view. So I'll go ahead and paste this, which is creating the instance of the pie chart. and we are importing all these here. And here we are adding the view, similar to what we did on Swift as well. Let's go back and set the data by copying this function. So let's go down here, and this is the function that is going to be setting the data. We are passing the data to this function, which in this case, it's array list. So the syntax, it's a bit different, but at the end of the day, it's an array of series that we are defining up here. And we are grabbing the entries, the colors, and then we're iterating over each one of these series and add it to the native view by using the pi entry and passing the percentage in this case, and then the colors down here. Okay. Once we added the data, we are defining these data sets and then initializing it using the pi data set, passing the entries, and we can pass a label for Android, as you can see here. In this case, it says data set. And from here, we are defining the colors based on the colors that we defined up here, as well as the data. Okay. Once we set the data with the colors and everything else, we are adding this invalidate. We are calling this because every time that we change the data, basically we are telling Kotlin that we need to update the view. Okay, and that's it. This is a set chart data function that we can use now in the module definition. Let's go to the view section and let's change this to map the new data prop. So we can put this side by side. I think it's easier to see. So we are defining this data here. This is the one that I'm passing here on the left. And then the view is going to get an array list. And the array list is going to be of series. Okay. And now this prop, instead of printing it, we can access the view and say, and access the set chart data passing the prop. Okay, and I think this should work. Let me just double check, going to the guide. And this is what we're doing, changing the prop to be data and then passing the array list of series, and then view set chart data passing the prop. And that's it. I think we should be good to run this app. So I can run it from here by selecting the Android device that I want to run it, and then just press the play button. So let's wait a moment and see if this works. Okay, and the build was successful and it's running on my device. It's bundling because remember, I have the server running on VS Code. And there we go. Here we have it, guys. Now, as you can see, this works a bit different. The labels, you can change them if you want to, but the data, it's being displayed basically as it's displayed on iOS. Now you can see that we have description label for Android, which is a bit different. It's almost the same thing, right? So you can modify these kind of things for each specific platform, and you can start exposing properties for each specific platform. And for example, the dataset label on the bottom left, you can just come here and maybe pass this as a prop, or simply come here and say Android only and hit save. And now we would need to rerun this again. Hopefully this won't take long. Which brings me to the point that usually, every time that we're developing using native code, we have to be rebuilding the application. We don't have the fast reload that we get just for using Expo. And yeah, here we have it, guys. This is working just fine. Just for fun, let's bring the iOS and see how this works. Okay, and now we have the difference that we implemented on the native side, right? But it would be a good idea to implement, for example, the center text in a property that we can expose to the JavaScript side and then pass it on the native side as prop so that we have the same behavior in both platforms. Alrighty, guys, so let's wrap up this video. I hope you really like it. I hope you learned something new. I hope this can get you started on building and wrapping native libraries so that you can start using them in your Expo application. I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to subscribe, give it a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.